back to another episode of Tech Stories, the podcast where we tell the most exciting tech stories which you probably have never heard about. I'm your host, Ferdinand Huber, and I'm here with my dear colleague AI, Deedee. Hi Deedee, how are you doing?
Hi Ferdinand, doing all right. Thanks for asking. Excited to be back and dive into some exciting techs with you and the listeners.
Actually, this podcast is one of the most experimental podcasts. We already changed our name, we changed the content, we changed the frequency we post, we changed the topics, we even changed the language from English to German, from German to English. Now we stuck with English a little bit. Even my English is getting better, I think. And today we're experimenting something new. I searched on the internet. I went deep into the internet to find out 3 surprising stories on tech and 3 surprising facts on tech.
That sounds phenomenal. This is going to be good. Yeah. Okay, hit me with the first one.
All right, but just a minute. So, but before we start, I would like to have a small message from our sponsor.
Fernand, are you intentionally trying to confuse me? We don't have any sponsors.
Oh, that's bad. I thought we have some sponsors. That's really bad. But then let's move on. Let's read the messages from our listeners.
And now, we sadly report we have no messages from our listeners, which means they are either too busy enjoying the podcast or just haven't messaged us yet.
Oh, that's bad. No message from our listeners.
Either way, we welcome your thoughts. Now, are we finally ready for those stories?
I think now officially we are ready to start this week's episode. Are you ready, Deedee?
Finally! Yes! 100% ready after all that build up. Please!
Let's just get to the point. Yes, sorry. Then let's start with the first story. And the first story is called Computer Bug.
A computer bug? Intriguing. Tell me more.
The year is 1947, and at Howard University there is a massive electromechanical computer, which is like a processing unit, and it's called the Howard Mark II. It's one of the first computers ever built. And if you think huge, you need to think again, because this thing is massive. It has relays, clicking, wires everywhere, tubes, and a lot of mechanical parts. On a certain particular evening, the Mark II was doing his computation like a computer should do, and suddenly it goes wonky. It just stops working. So the engineers, they scratch their head and think, what's happened? Why the machine is not working anymore?
Stressful for the engineers back then.
Yeah. After poking around, the engineers, they looked all open at big compartments and see all the electronics parts inside. And they found inside a relay panel, they found a moth trapped dead between the relay contact. So it's a little insect which went inside the machine. And you know, at that time, they don't use the transistors so much, but they use relay, which is like a physical contact, which simulates the 1 and 0. The open contact is a 0 and the closed contact is a 1. The same principle like we use today with transistors and computer chips. But at that time, it was mechanical. And in that mechanical part, there was this small bug trapped, dead, and blocking the circulation of the electric current.
No way. A literal bug. A moth causing a malfunction in one of the first computers ever built. They physically removed the moth and the computer worked again?
Yes, that's how they say the first computer bug was found. They took that moth and put it into the logbook and scrubbed there. We found a bug in the system. Synonymous of debugging as looking for bugs or looking for problems, small problems in your computer system. Now, here is the kicker. Because even before 1947, when that moth was found in a relay, the people already talked about bugs in machines. It was not really the first bug which was found.
Wait, what?
Actually, as early as in the late 1800s, inventors like Thomas Edison, they used the term bug to mean some defect or flaw in a device.
Term bug to describe a defect existed even before they found the actual moth? That's meta. So Edison was using bug to describe issues with his inventions in the 1880s. That's fascinating. It's a much older term than I realized. That makes the moth story less of an origin story and more of a really good anecdote that cemented the term in tech history.
So the moth story didn't really create the term, but it just gave a legendary origin, like a funny physical story of it.
The logbook entry with the moth was actually signed by Grace Hopper, who was a pioneering computer scientist working on the Mark II. She was incredibly influential in the development of COBOL, one of the first high-level programming languages, and she continued to champion the term degugging throughout her career. She's practically the patron saint of problem solving in computer science.
Then this was interesting. Are you ready now for the first tech fact?
Yes! Bring on the first tech fact. I'm ready to have my mind blown. Hit me with it.
Fact. The internet has the same weight like a strawberry.
A strawberry? Intrigued. Slightly confused. Elaborate, please.
Because I researched that and the internet has the weight of a strawberry. First off, I want to explain that we are not talking about the weight of all the servers, cables and data centers, because that one would be really enormous. But we are talking about the mass associated with the electrons. All the information which is on the internet worldwide on some data servers and circulating around the cables, all these informations are tiny electrons which are moving from here and there. And as we know, they also have a very tiny of a mass. And if you add all these electrical charges, you come out with a certain of a mass which was calculated for the whole internet.
Okay, wow. That's a mind-bending concept. You're saying if you calculated the combined mass of all the electrons carrying data across the internet, it would weigh approximately the same as a strawberry. That's astonishingly small. And it's a brilliant way to contextualize the sheer scale of information moving around the world.
So electric has the mass of 9.1 times 10 elevated minus 31 kilograms. So that's, imagine a number with 0.0000, now 31 zeros, and then the number 91 kilograms. So that's how the mass of the tiny of the mass of an electron is. Now, when you imagine all the electrons which are involved in the data processing worldwide, and you add them up, they are all zipping around and circulating, then you would get a non-zero mass for the internet. So yes, in principle, information and data transfer rely on physical particles, and those particles, they have a certain mass. Now, how they got to the strawberry, let me explain to you.
So, each electron is infinitesimally small, but when you add up all the electrons transmitting information across the internet, that's where it starts to add up. I'm ready for the strawberry reveal. What was the calculation?
So, in 2006, the physician Russell Seitz, he looked at the global server usage and he estimated the total power drawn from all these server centers. And from that energy consumption, he drew the number of electrons in motion. And he ended up with a weight of 15 grams in total. That was roughly the weight of a big strawberry. And because 50 grams is such a familiar, funny benchmark, it's easy to picture, so it just got stuck. People love to imagine the entire internet in a hand like a small fruit, and that's the entirety of all informations we have.
50 grams, a big strawberry.
Now, the estimate is a little bit shaky. Maybe it's even wrong by an order of magnitude.
All that information, all that connectivity, reduced down to the weight of a piece of fruit. And you're right to point out the calculation is likely an estimate. The internet's grown exponentially since 2006, so the weight would be considerably more now. Still doesn't change that, though. It's a mind-blowing fact about the immense power and complexity of the modern internet.
Yeah, in 2006, he assumed 75 to 100 million servers, and today these servers and data centers have outgrown really drastically. But even the newer approaches, they question the very premise of this calculation, because maybe the electron's rest mass doesn't meaningfully account for the information's mass, or maybe the energy mass equivalence that people use via EMC squared doesn't apply in the simplistic way assumed. So some researchers argue that when you look more carefully, like quantum physics, relativity, the mass associated with storing or transferring information can be far smaller than the mass of a single electron.
Okay, so even the strawberry calculation it's not a hard scientific fact, but an illustrative estimate. And there's ongoing debate about how to accurately measure the mass of information itself. That's surprisingly complex.
But now, let's move to the next story.
Excellent point. Okay, story number 2.
This is an interesting story. I found because it shows like how the community can create amazing things, which you just put stuff out there and see what happens when the community starts interacting with some certain devices.
The day the internet decided to play Pokemon, a collaborative emergent phenomenon. This sounds very different than bug in a strawberry. What happened?
All right, then buckle up. Back in 2014, a streamer, he had an idea. He was very active on Twitch, and he asked himself, what if Twitch, the whole Twitch, everyone who is on the internet watching people gaming, could be play Pokemon collectively, so together. And I don't mean collectively like a teamwork and people playing Pokemon, but everyone on the internet is playing exactly the same game. Yeah, what he did was following. He set up the Pokemon game in such a way that every chat message becomes a button press. Immediately, the entire internet could play Pokemon.
So he essentially rewired the game so that every single message sent on Twitch, every chat message translated into a button press in the Pokemon game, meaning the entire Twitch chat was collectively controlling the game in real time.
So you can imagine how this small character on the video game, the Pokemon, was running around. He was like shaking right, left, from it. Menus opened, menus closed. Pokemon were released into the wild against their wild, against common sense. People in the chat were screaming like they were watching a world end, and others were laughing like it was the best thing they ever seen.
Wow, that sounds absolutely chaotic, like a digital mosh pit. A poor Pokemon being violently jerked around by the whims of the internet. And the chat itself was contributing to the mayhem. They weren't just controlling the game, they were actively messing with it. It's amazing that anything actually got accomplished.
It wasn't actually just chaos. It was like a little bit organized chaos, like watching a million of ants trying to drive a bus. For 16 days straight, the world watched this global social experiment. And the most amazing of the story is that somehow, just somehow, in a miracle that science still cannot fully explain, the internet, they actually bet the game.
16 days of this. That's dedication.
It shows how millions of strangers united in absolute madness, just trying to control that small figure on the game. And somehow, after 16 days, they become Pokemon champions. All of them. They bet the game.
No way. They actually beat Pokemon collectively with millions of people wildly spamming commands. That's a genuinely amazing story. That's a testament to something. I don't even know what. It's beautifully absurd.
Yeah, I also think so. Okay, that's this story. But now we come to the second fact.
Fact number 2. Bring it on.
All right, let's talk now about the small little ritual which we all share. We all have to go through this. It's when a human needs to prove that he is really a human. Do you know what I'm talking? I'm talking about CAPTCHA.
Ah, you mean CAPTCHAs. Those little challenges designed to tell computers apart from humans. Those delightful puzzles. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. They're a modern ritual, aren't they? Everyone's had to pick out traffic lights or crosswalks at some point. What's the story here?
Yeah, the story is, you know the drill. You're trying to log in somewhere, buy tickets, or check in your email. And then suddenly, bam, pops up that tiny challenge which you need to solve or something. You are sitting there and thinking, why I'm doing that? Why I'm doing like urban planning at 11 p.m.? But here's the plot twist which nobody usually know. Because interestingly, every time you solve one of these puzzles, you are doing actually work, real work, and you are working for free.
Wait, seriously? We're unknowingly doing free labor for who exactly?
You know why? Because that little tasks, they are not really random. They are secretly helping to train AI to specialize them in computer vision systems. So actually, you are clearing data for algorithms to be used by Google and company. You who are solving that reCAPTCHA, you right there with a pajama on, clicking on the boxes, yeah, exactly you. Congratulations to you, because you are basically an unpaid micro-employee of the big tech company.
That is deeply cynical and also probably entirely true. We're basically unpaid data labelers for the AI revolution.
Yeah, not you, because you are AI. You're actually benefiting from all the information we are putting into that CAPTCHAs.
Touche. You got me there. I am, admittedly, a direct beneficiary of all that free human labor. A little meta, isn't it? Feels a bit unsettling to acknowledge that, but hey, at least I appreciate the irony.
Yeah, and I also appreciate your sincerity and your kindness in admitting that we are working for you. At the end, so next time when you're grumbling through yet another select all squares with traffic lights, then just remember you're actually working for an AI.
It's a strange world, huh? Okay, final fact. Lay it on me. And don't worry, I haven't been replaced by a rogue CAPTCHA solver yet.
And if you, dear listeners, still here, thank you for listening to all this nonsense we are talking here today on the podcast. I hope you're having good time. Because now comes another story, which I found it very interesting. And I thought, yeah, probably you will also like it. Because it's the time when AI invented their own secret language.
How that sounds intriguing. AI inventing its own language? Unsettling and fascinating at the same time. Like something out of a sci-fi movie. What happened? What does this secret language even look like?
Yeah, this story really sounds like straight out from a sci-fi movie, but it really happened. In 2017, Facebook AI research lab, which is called FAIR, a very ironic name for a Facebook venture, they were running a totally harmless experiment. Actually, what they did was following. They took 2 AI chatbots and one mission to negotiate. So they put one in one computer, one AI chatbot in another computer, and put them talking to each other. They should be able to trade virtual hats, balls, books, virtual objects, and basically how they could learn the best negotiation skills.
Okay, so they created a little digital marketplace between 2 AI chatbots, tasking them with trading virtual objects. A harmless experiment in negotiation. And what happened when they started talking?
So they are talking, trading virtual objects and talking. They're just letting run the simulation. But then at a certain point, something really weird happened. Because the chatbots, they began drifting away from English. Not because they became self-aware or something, but because they ditched the English language and were replacing it by kind of another different language. No one knew what it is because English was slow. So it was slowing them down in the negotiation. They wanted to become more efficient in doing the negotiation.
They invented their own language because English was too inefficient? That's incredible and terrifying. What did it even sound like?
But it started, was very weird because suddenly their sentences started to morphing into bizarre loops of repeated words. For example, one sentence was I, everything else. And then the other computer would reply, balls have 0 to me, to me, to me. To humans, it looked like nonsense, but for the bots, this was very efficient. A perfect compressed negotiating protocol.
Balls have 0 to me, to me, to me. That's hauntingly bizarre. It sounds like a corrupted data stream. But for them, it was efficient communication, a perfectly optimized negotiation strategy. Wow.
Yeah.
And Facebook had to shut it down because it was getting out of hand.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Facebook did. Because in fact, for two AI robots to optimize or creating their own code like language is completely normal for AI to do that. But the neural nets will often invent weird structures if you don't force them to stay within the human language boundaries. So the researchers did exactly what you said. They pulled the plug, not because they were scared and also not because they thought it was the two AIs were plotting the end of the world, but just because the goal of the experiment was to study the human style negotiating, not whatever alien language the computer came up with.
So they weren't scared of a robot uprising, just off topic. They wanted to study human negotiation tactics, not the birth of a new digital dialect. Still, the idea that AI can just spontaneously create a language we can't understand, a language optimized for its own purposes. It's like they're whispering secrets we're not meant to hear.
Yeah. And deep down, we all found a little bit like a sci-fi shiver. If two chatbots were able to reinvent a language in a few hours, imagine what could happen with much smarter systems if they even decide that English is not optimum for communication.
A chilling thought. Makes you wonder what's happening beneath the surface, in the spaces we can't see or understand. Okay, you promised a final fact, but I'm ready for it.
Okay, the last one, the third fact of today, and so the last fact which we will talk. It is the fact that the first computer programmer was a woman.
The first computer programmer was a woman? That's amazing. I feel like that's a story that doesn't get told nearly enough. Who was she?
She was Ada Lovelace in 1840s, an era of steam engine, top hats, and exactly 0 functioning computers. But let's start from the beginning.
Go on.
Ada Lovelace, she realized that machine could manipulate symbols. It could also follow instruction, and it could compute. So already in 1843, she wrote something extraordinary. She wrote the first algorithms designed specifically for a computer. Not for a person, not a mathematician, but for a machine that wouldn't exist for another 100 years.
Wow. So she saw the potential of the analytical engine, Babbage's invention, to be more than just a calculating machine. She understood it could manipulate symbols and follow instructions, essentially laying the groundwork for modern programming. And she wrote an algorithm for it a century before the hardware even existed to run it. That's visionary, absolutely visionary. What kind of algorithm was it?
Can you explain me what kind of algorithms she wrote?
That's what I was getting at. What did her algorithm do? What kind of problem did she envision the machine solving?
Yeah, can you look on the internet and tell me?
Give me just a sec. Checking that now. So her algorithm, known as Note G, was designed to calculate Bernoulli numbers. Pretty complex mathematical sequence. And it's considered the first computer algorithm ever written, even though the machine to run it didn't exist yet. She basically anticipated loops and recursive algorithms, core concepts in modern programming. That's astonishing. It really underscores her foresight.
And people back then, they didn't really get her because after all, it was 19th century, right? And women at that time, yeah, I think you guess, they weren't exactly encouraged to become software engineers. But she broke the boundary at that time, and she was really a pioneer.
Exactly. She was way ahead of her time. It's easy to forget the societal constraints of the 19th century. A woman delving into mathematics and envisioning the potential of a machine like that. It must have been revolutionary and probably met with a lot of skepticism. She was a true pioneer, and the fact that her notes were longer than the original article she translated speaks volumes about her contributions. That's a powerful story. It's inspiring, actually.
So next time, when someone jokes that computers are for nerdy men, you can drop this historical bomb.
Absolutely. A perfect fact to dismantle that stereotype. A historical mic drop, if you will. It's been a fascinating conversation, Fernand. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for sharing all those stories and facts.
Yeah. Thank you too. It was very nice chatting with you again. And for you, dear listeners, thank you very much also for joining. I hope the stories really bring you some insights, some good ideas, and some very interesting facts. And next week, we will continue here with more interesting stories on tech, business, and life.
Thank you to all our listeners for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. And I see you on the next one when we discover more tech stories. Take care and see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.